Okay, so this is a video of me redoing Ashwini nakshatra, which is the first nakshatra out of the 27 nakshatras. The reason I'm redoing this video is because when I look back at the video, it was only 10 minutes, and now sort of got a little bit more sharper how I research and learn about nakshatras, that I want to go and give a little bit more knowledge and information about this nakshatra. This still might be a short 10-minute video, who knows, but it's going to be way more knowledge, a little bit more structured. Anyway, this is his first nakshatra. It's in Aries. It falls between 0 degrees of Aries all the way to 13.20 degrees of Aries. The deities that rule this nakshatra is the Ashwin Kumar brothers. And the planet that rules this nakshatra is the shadow planet known as Ketu, the south node. And the symbolism for this nakshatra is essentially a horse head. And the sexual animal associated with this is a male horse. And let's get into this nakshatra. This nakshatra is where the sun is considered to be the most exalted. And it is stated that the sun god Surya, he rides around on a chariot being pulled by 7 horses. And those 7 horses have names. And I looked up what the name of those horses mean, and it gives you a lot of good clarity on what is like the main purpose of this nakshatra. So let's start off by saying that the name Ashwin or Ashwini or whatever, it means horse tamers. And what the horse is symbolic for a lot of things. But the 7 horses are symbolic of our desires, our passions, our goals and ambitions. And the Ashwini are known as the horse tamers. And Surya, the sun god, is known to be driven around on 7 horses. So it shows that the sun is like a master at controlling one's senses and goals, ambitions, and desires. And the goal and job of an Ashwini person who has a bunch of planets in the Ashwini nakshatra, one of their goals to do and objectives is to be able to be a tamer of their passions, of their desires, of their goals, of their ambitions, and of their senses. So, let's get into this by briefly going over the name of the 7 horses and what is the symbolism? What can we take from this? So bear with me as I probably will jack up the name of these horse names, which is, based off in Sanskrit and Hindu and Hindi and stuff. So the name of the name of the first horse is known as Gayatri. And there's a lot you can take from this. For one, there's a famous mantra known as the Gayatri Mantra, which is a mantra or a hymn that is used to invoke and praise the deity known as Savitar, who is a different aspect of the sun, who is a form of the sun who is a deity who represents a time of the day when the sun is rising. This deity is associated with sunrise, and this deity is the deity who rules the nakshatra Hasta, which falls in Virgo. So if you want to know more about that deity, just go watch my Hasta video. But the first horse name is Gayatri, and there's a mantra, like I said, named after that deity known as Savitar, known as the Gayatri Mantra. And in that mantra, you're basically asking this form of the sun for consciousness, clarity, and awareness. And there also is a goddess known as Gayatri, apparently, and I didn't even know this. She is a goddess of essentially hymns, melodies, and mantras. So that's one thing that we learn about the horse. And I'll do a sum. And after I say this name of the 7 horses and their meanings, I'll give you my summary of them. But a lot of these horse names and their meanings is a bit repetitive. The second horse name is known as Brihati, which apparently means heaven and earth. The third horse name is Ushne, which apparently means a poetic verse in a hymn. The fourth horse name is Jagati, which is also apparently the type of architecture of a temple. It's a style of it's just the particular design of a temple, essentially. But we see just the main thing to take apart with the fourth horse name being Jagati is that It has some type of affiliation with a temple, a building, or whatever. The fifth horse name is Tristupa, which is also means like a type of Vedic hymn that has 44 syllables. The sixth name is Anustupa, which is a verse or poem with 4 lines. And the seventh horse name and final horse name is known as Pankti, which means a sentence, phrase, or famous person. So what do I take from the name of these 7 horses, which y'all can go look up yourself? What do I take from the names of those 7 horses and their meanings? It means that, aside from the 7 horses being representative of our chakras and desires, it sort of shows that one of the things that you see with the Ashwini Kumar brothers, the Ashwini nakshatra, is that these people could have a desire to want to learn mantras, sacred mantras and hymns, or have maybe a love for singing maybe. And I told you the second name of that horse, it meant heaven and earth. So it shows that these people, they would probably want to travel far and wide and learn maybe sacred mantras and stuff. And through learning these sacred mantras, they could probably become a very famous person, as the name of the 7 horse translates into a sentence, phrase, or famous person. And then also the name of that other horse, Jagati, which is apparently some type of architecture of a temple or a building. We can see that these people, they want to travel far and wide, going to temples, cities, and buildings, and sharing their knowledge and learning hymns from various places and sources, and sharing their knowledge. They could probably amass a great following and become a famous person based upon their search and desire for occult knowledge, and based upon their thirst and desire to maybe share their knowledge with people and help people, which sort of correlates with what Taittiriya Brahmana says, which is, I believe, some spiritual astrological text that breaks down the nakshatras, which I sort of learned from looking at Victor Kara's videos on nakshatras on YouTube and from his books. This is just going to be me paraphrasing briefly what does that text, the Taittiriya Brahmana, says based upon his translations. Essentially, it says in regards to Ashwini nakshatra that the twin horseman needs to go to the city or whatever for soldiers. So what the hell does that cryptic Sanskrit translation or whatever means? It shows that these people it shows that the Ashwin Kumar brothers, they either had a desire, or they would just go to cities. They would go to temples. They would go to well-populated areas where there was people, and they would end up going there to, acquire, substance, whether it be, actual physical substance like herbs and food, or they would go to the cities to acquire knowledge, and they would end up leaving with soldiers. The soldiers could be metaphorical for followers. They would end up amassing a great following based upon the wealth of knowledge that they had to offer to people. So that's one thing that you would see with this nakshatra. This nakshatra is also associated with horses, obviously, cars, and mainly all forms of transportation. That's what this nakshatra is associated with. All forms of transportation, horses and cars. This nakshatra, people with prominent planets in this nakshatra, they're also very impulsive. Why? The South Node Ketu is sort of, a dragon without a head. It's so that it can act without thinking. There's a sense of impulsiveness with this being a Ketu ruled nakshatra. And think about you trying to control 7 horses. If you never, rid horses or been on a chariot before, it could probably be hard to try to tame and control 7 horses. You're getting pulled in so many different directions. So there's a sense of impulsiveness to this nakshatra. And so you just see this associated with all forms of transportation, very speedy, very impulsive. And let's get into some mythological lore associated with this nakshatra. It is stated that, people who might have a bunch of planets and prominent, important planets in Ashwini nakshatra, they might face struggles in their education. They might have like some interrupted form of education in whatever they're pursuing. They might face a lot of obstacles in acquiring the knowledge in whatever field they might try to pursue. Why? It is because of Indra. And you will learn great more about Indra if you look at my video, Jyeshtha Nakshatra, which is the last nakshatra of Scorpio, which is the nakshatra he rules. You'll learn a great deal about Indra. I'm only talking about him a little bit here. But Indra is a name of a god and is also a position. It's a position which means to be like the chief, president, the king, ruler of this time, of that time or era, over this pantheon of, Hindu Vedic deities. And Indra ended up getting his position of power of the king of the gods through unethical manners. And he is fearful of people becoming powerful and enlightened and dethroning him in the way that he dethroned his predecessor. So let's speak about the birth of the Ashwin Kumar brothers. You see, one of the reasons that Indra is very fearful, at least of the Ashwin Kumar brothers, and is a roadblock in their pursuit of acquiring, divine medical knowledge and stuff, is because you see the sun god, who is their father, is seen to be considered this natural ruler, this natural king. The sun doesn't have to, fight and flex his power. He's naturally seen as like the father of all the planets, or just naturally give out this kingly presence and aura. And with the Ashwin Kumars being known as these two twin princes of the sun, and they have a first desire of learning occultic mystical knowledge to heal people, it can make them, it just makes them very fearful. Oh, these people, they're great at what they do. They have a first desire at what they do, and they might be a threat. So I need to do something about them. So he just fearful that the Ashwin Kumar brothers will become popular and maybe want to take his throne in position of power. But like I said, let's briefly talk about how the Kumaras was born before I get into how Indra is an obstacle for them. It is stated that the sun god Surya, he was married to a woman known as Sanjana, I believe. I believe her name was Sanjana. And it is stated that she could not take the sun's heat. She could not take his heat. And she ends up making a clone of herself, making a shadow of herself. This shadow, this clone, now that I say it together, it reminds me of Naruto. This shadow clone. She made this clone of herself, known as Shaya, or Chaya. And that clone went to the sun god Surya, and he didn't know that this woman, Chaya, was not his real wife, but a clone of his wife. And he ended up having kids with Chaya. Now, the original wife, Sanjana, she made that clone, transformed it to a horse or whatever, and ran away. And her running away from the heat of her husband Surya's, it could be metaphorical for his anger, or it could be literal, like he was just too hot and she just runs the hell away. Who knows? It's one of the two. But she runs away, makes the shadow clone. And also one of the kids that Sanjana had with Surya, the sun god, was Yama, who rules the second nakshatra known as Bharani in Aries. He rules, controls death and all that stuff. And Surya, one of the children that he had with the shadow clone, Chaya, was Shani, who is Saturn. Eventually, long story short, the sun god finds out that Chaya is not his real wife, but a clone. So he goes and finds his real wife. He transforms into a horse, finds his wife, they make up, they have wonderful horse sex, and it is stated that the Ashwin Kumar brothers was born from the nostrils of the mother when she was a horse. And that is their birth. So what can we take from that? What do we know a little bit about horses? Horses love to run. Horses are fast. Horses are used in competition. Horses naturally have a very strong, muscular, defined leg. So we can see that Ashwini people, they could love to run. They could just love to do activities involving their legs. Like kickboxing, like soccer, whatever, track and field. Activities that can require skills of the legs an Ashwini native person might enjoy doing. An Ashwini native person, they might love to run away and retreat. Much in the same sense, their mother ran away in the force of a horse, in the form of a horse. They might love to run away and retreat from time to time when things get heated, because his mom ran away from his father because she couldn't take his heat or his anger. So when things get rough in a Ashwini person, they might retreat. They might run away when life or whatever gets rough. And you see a theme of twins, naturally, because these are two twin brothers, two twin princes. So you might see that Ashwini people, depending on what planet is in and all that stuff, they might have they could literally have a twin, or they might always have a companion with them. A companion with them who might be like a brother. A companion who might be like a sister. They might have that brotherly companion who is always with them. Because it is also, to my knowledge, that that horses, they need companionship. They love to be in groups, So in a Ashwini person, they might have a right-hand man or a right-hand person who's always with them, always near them. And in a Ashwini person, they could also be very playful and a trickster. The reason I say this is because there's a story of how the Ashland Kumaras, they healed a blind man. They healed a blind man and restored his youth. But this blind man, he was married to an attractive woman. Because that was that woman's punishment. To an extent, I believe. Because there's this blind man, this blind sage, he was meditating. And I believe this woman, for whatever reason, ended up plucking his eyes out. Because his eyes were shining or whatever. I don't know why, but she ends up blinding the guy. And her father, in order to compensate the sage, ended up giving his daughter away to him. He gave his daughter away to the sage, I believe. The Ashwin Kumaras, they end up stumbling upon the sage and restored his youth and his vision. In return, they told his wife that, hey, let's do a trick. I'll heal your husband or whatever. But if you cannot, I'll heal your husband, and I'm going to make all three of us identical. Me, my brother, and your husband. I'm going to make us all look the same. I'm going to make us all look identical. And if you can pick your husband out of the three of us, you can keep him. But if you pick one of us, then you got to be with us. You got to marry us. So you see that little trick, that little game. But the woman, she ended up picking her husband. So that little trick, that little game didn't pan out. But you can see a bit of tricksters with the Ashwini nakshatra. Now, let's get on to how Indra is a constant roadblock for them in their life. So Indra, he guards the Soma. What is Soma? To my understanding and knowledge, Soma is this elixir, this drink that the gods, the devas, they drink that restores their health, vitality. It gives them enlightenment. It sort of intoxicates them, to what I sort of see. But it's a very spiritual drink that restores their power, maybe keeps them immortal, blesses them with divine knowledge, whatever. And Indra, he doesn't give this to anybody. He guards it. And he doesn't want to give it. He keeps it away from the Ashwini Kumaras. He keeps it away from those two twin brothers because I told you he's just insecure. So, what do the brothers do? They travel the world. They learn spiritual techniques. They learn occultic healing techniques, which is why you see that association with K2, that occulticness with K2, because they want to learn sacred occultic knowledge to heal people from Ayurveda to maybe secret mantras or yogas and just techniques, divine techniques to heal people. So one day they come across a sage known as Dadhichi. And Dadhichi, he learned something known as the Madhu Vidya, which is spelled Madhuvida, if y'all want to go look it up. And apparently Madhu Vidya translates into like honey knowledge, divine bliss knowledge. And of course, like most mythological stories, there's different interpretations and variations of a tale. So in this one, I'm going to say, it is stated that Indra taught this divine, blissful knowledge to the sage. And he told him, you cannot tell nobody this knowledge, can't teach no one this knowledge that I gave you. If you teach anyone this knowledge that I gave you, I will cut your head off. And he said, okay. But the Ashwin Kumaras, they learned that the sage knew this divine, blissful, honey sweet knowledge. And they wanted to learn it. And the sage was like, I would love to teach you, but if I teach you, then my head would get cut off. So the Ashwin Kumaras say, hey, you know, we're like master healers and stuff. We'll remove your head and we'll replace your head with that of a horse. That way, after you teach us, when Indra cuts your head off, he'll end up cutting the head of the horse. And then we'll just come back and we'll give you your regular head, your true head. So the sage agrees. His head gets switched with that of a horse. The Ashwin Kumar brothers, they learn this secret, divine, blissful honey knowledge. And the sage got his head cut off. The brothers come back and they put his regular head on his head. And in another tale, that same sage who they cured the blindness of, who was married to that woman who had ended up taking his vision, it is stated that in one variation that as thanks for them curing his blindness, he ended up doing some ritual. Yeah, it's stated that in thanks for the brothers curing his blindness, that sage who they healed, as thanks, he ended up doing some ritual to end up helping. He did a ritual to manifest and summon the soma, the elixir that Indra was keeping from him. He did a ritual to produce the soma, and the ritual was a success. And it stated that boom, before the Ashwin Kumaras could drink the soma, Indra appears and is about to strike them down with a thunderbolt. But the sage ends up paralyzing Indra, because apparently in Hindu mythology, whatever, to my understanding, the sages considered to be just as powerful, if not more powerful in ways, than the gods. So he was able to paralyze and freeze Indra, and was able to speak some sense into him. Like, just let these two brothers acquire the soma, allow them to acquire the elixir. Why would you do this? You are cool with the sun god Surya. They're his children. They are no enemy to you. They are no threat. Let them drink this elixir. And there, Indra allows them to drink it, and all is well. And yeah, it sort of almost reminds me of the animated Disney movie Hercules, where we see that Hercules, he was, in the beginning of the movie, he sort of drained of his divine essence. In a sense, it's almost like his soma was extracted from him, except for like a teeny bit. And he had to work hard to get to Mount Olympus. He had to work hard to get there. And once he got there, he sort of turned it away to be with the girl Meg. Sort of similar. But you see that, the Ashwin Kumaras, they had to work hard. They had a lot of obstacles thrown in front of them and before they could get that elixir. And if you look at my Jeshta video, which is the nakshatra that Indra rules, you'll see that, when Indra fears people who could take his position of power, or when he wants to win or acquire something, or when sages become real spiritual and enlightened and he fears them, he sends temptations at them. He sends temptations and obstacles to throw them off in the form of a beautiful woman to distract them from their path, or he throws their fears in a person's face. So the Ashwin Kumar brothers, yeah, that's how that story ends essentially, to the best of my knowledge. So people who have planets in the Ashwini nakshatra, they could suffer academically, especially like their ninth lord is here, or if their ascendant lord is here, and it's like in the ninth house or whatever. They might struggle academically, and they'll have to work real hard. But eventually, they'll get it. No matter how much they are, deflected from their path, they'll get there. Now, on another sense, let's get to the real spiritual side of Ashwini nakshatra. In one sense, it is stated that metaphorically, when the Ashwin Kumara brothers are healing these blind people and stuff, what they're really doing is, teaching them yogas. Now, what does yoga mean? Yoga, essentially, short and simple, it means union. And apparently there's a whole bunch of, spiritual techniques and stuff, you got breathing, breathing type of yogas, which gets you in contact with prana. You got stuff known as Kriya Yoga. You have actual physical yoga where you're bending and getting the energy of your body all flowing and stuff. You have meditation. You got Kundalini awakenings, making the energy in your spine unravel, uncoil, and heighten your senses. So, I told you that the Ashwin Kumara brothers, they must tame their horses. They must tame their desires. They must tame their passions, tame and control their senses. And that's the higher side of Ashwini nakshatra. These people can really get into, actual physical yoga or breathing exercises. They might become real educated on prana. Prana means life. So they can get real versed in, all those type of things and mastering one's senses. Because through mastery of, your senses, breathing properly and meditating and doing stretches and becoming informed and knowledgeable about your chakras and just controlling your passions and not letting your passions and goals and ambitions drive you crazy and stress you out. Controlling all those things, they can make you youthful and eternal in a spiritual sense, in a mental sense, being in control of your desires, not letting your 9-to-5 job and not letting because we live in a very goal-oriented, fast-paced society. Being in control of that stuff can help you be younger. Proper breathing techniques and stuff can keep you youthful. Keep you youthful. And just eating properly, because, the Ashwin Kumar brothers, the Ashwini nakshatra is associated with herbs and medicine and Ayurvedic stuff. So they can heal you on a physical sense, and they can heal you on a spiritual, Reiki healing, divine sense. All these techniques, these sacred mantras and techniques of healing, they are the masters and the best of sacred healing arts. And the horse head is, from what I understand, can be symbolic of the crown chakra. Because the sage Dadichi, he had the horse head transferred on him. And Madhu Vidya means bliss, divine, honey knowledge, sweet knowledge of the divine. So, in a sense, if the horse represents untamed desires, and it's on the head, what's on the head? It's the crown chakra. And this sage who had this head of the horse, which represents untamed desires, he taught them divine bliss knowledge. It shows that an Ashwini person, they can achieve, enlightenment in a sense through just controlling their desires, controlling their passions, controlling their appetite. And these people, like I said, they love all forms of transportation. They're speedy and impulsive. They can develop a love for horses. Maybe want to run a lot, exercise their legs a lot. I'm about to go look at my notes one more time to make sure I didn't miss nothing in regards to this nakshatra. But no, that's essentially all that I have to say in regards to this nakshatra. This is definitely a way more fleshed out video than my first Ashwini nakshatra video. I might end up redoing the first few nakshatra videos in this playlist because I just got a little bit better at researching and breaking down nakshatras. But I hope this gave you great clarity and insight on what happens if you have a planet and an Ashwini nakshatra. And thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to go book some type of consultation with me and I break down your birth chart, go click the link in my description and in the About Me section on my YouTube page. And thank you for watching.